Well, it's finally done. I wrote a program using the SUBLEQ architecture that calculates the first 3 digits of pi using only one instruction. I was hoping to have this done before Pi Day, but better late than never. Hello everyone, my name is Mike and you're watching Polymath Unlimited. Last year, I decided to build a CPU that implements the SUBLEQ instruction set. This instruction set is very special because it only has one instruction. However, using just this one instruction, we can run any program we want. I made a video going over this processor in more detail last year, but in case you missed that, here's the basics of how it works. The SUBLEQ instruction takes 3 arguments, A, B, and C. The instruction takes the value stored at address B, subtracts the value stored at address A, and stores the result at address B. Then, if the result was less than or equal to 0, the program jumps to address C. Otherwise, it simply continues on to the next instruction. Using this one simple instruction, we can simulate other instructions. For example, we can execute an unconditional jump by simply subtracting a memory location from itself, which always results in 0, so the instruction will always branch. We can do addition by subtracting a negative number, and we can copy values by first zeroing a location and then adding a value we want to copy. Once we can do addition, subtraction, copying, and branching, it is relatively straightforward to do multiplication and division using loop structures. What I have set out to accomplish in this video is to see if I can combine all of this to make a program that computes the first 3 digits of pi using only 256 bytes worth of SUBLEQ instructions. Before we can do that, though, we need to select an algorithm to implement. There are lots of options out there, but the one I went with is a spigot algorithm created by Rabinowitz and Wagon. This algorithm starts with a list of fractions, each with the number 2 written under it. Then we repeat the following steps. First, multiply each number by 10. Then, beginning from the right and moving leftward, we divide the number by the denominator of its corresponding fraction. We replace the number with the remainder, and then add the product of the quotient and the numerator of the fraction to the number on the left. Once we reach the leftmost number, dividing that number by 10 will give a digit of pi. Repeating these steps will give more digits of pi. Our list of numbers and fractions needs to be longer if we want to generate more digits accurately. In general, the length of our number list needs to be 10 times the number of digits we want to calculate, divided by 3. Here's a C++ program that I wrote that implements this algorithm. And here is a reduced version of that program that operates using only bytes and which has been modified to make translating it into SUBLEQ easier. Let's go through this code briefly before we get into the SUBLEQ implementation. First, we have some constants that define the number of digits we want to calculate and the length of the array that we will therefore need in order to calculate those digits. Then, we have several variables that our program will use along with our array. At the start of the program, we initialize all elements of the array to 2. Then we loop through the algorithm 3 times to produce our 3 digits. For each digit, we first set q equal to 0, numerator equal to the length of the array, and the denominator equal to twice the numerator plus 1. Then, for each array entry, starting at the last entry and moving toward the first, we first set x equal to 10 times the array entry plus q times the numerator. Then we divide x by the denominator and store the result in q and the remainder in the array entry. Note that I used a loop to do this with just addition and subtraction operations instead of implicit division and modulo operations in order to make writing the SUBLEQ code easier later. This weird condition in the while loop is necessary because our SUBLEQ CPU operates on signed bytes, while our SUBLEQ program expects our bytes to behave like unsigned bytes. In other words, this condition accounts for the fact that the SUBLEQ code will interpret values greater than 127 as negative numbers. Once the division is complete, we will subtract 1 from the numerator and 2 from the denominator. After we have adjusted all the array entries, We will divide the first array element by 10 and store the result in Q and the remainder in the first array entry. Again, the division here is implemented in a loop with additions and subtractions to make converting to SUBLEQ easier. However, the loop condition here is much simpler since none of the numbers involved in this division should be greater than 127, which means we don't have to worry about signed versus unsigned bytes. Once that is done, we simply print Q, which should now contain a digit of pi, to the console. Running the program should demonstrate that this works, at least conceptually. Now comes the hard part, translating this C++ code into SUBLEQ assembly code. This is the assembly program that I wrote to implement this algorithm. I'll go ahead and show it side by side with the C++ version as we go through it so we can compare the two. First off, we have two memory locations defined, called LCD char and LCD instruction. These are the locations that are mapped to the LCD in our physical computer's memory. Memory writes to LCD char will cause a character to be written to the LCD, and memory writes to LCD instruction will cause bytes to be written to the display's instruction register. On startup, our program will clear the LCD display by writing 1 to the display's instruction register. We do this by first zeroing the instruction byte, then subtracting -1 from it. This next block of code implements the array initialization for loop from the C++ program. However, since SUBLEQ doesn't allow for array access and pointer dereferencing natively, we have to get a little bit creative. Notice that we have defined a memory location in the loop called initDref. This will allow us to write self-modifying code that modifies the memory targets of the instructions that access the array. The program starts with the addresses for those instructions pointing to the start of the array, so before the loop runs, we will subtract -10 from all those instructions, making it so that those instructions will now point to the address 10 bytes beyond the start of the array, which is 1 byte after the last element of the array. Then, the first thing we do on each iteration of the loop is decrement those addresses. That way, each time the loop runs, the instructions accessing the array will be accessing the correct element of the array. Once our counter variable j, which we have also added 10 to before running the loop, reaches 0, we will break out of the loop. Otherwise, we perform an unconditional jump to continue the loop. Next, we start a loop that will loop through all of the digits we want to calculate, called loop 1 in the assembly program. This loop will correspond with the outer for loop in the C++ program. Inside this loop, we will use some similar self-modifying code techniques as we did when initializing the array elements. We then set q equal to 0 and the denominator equal to 19. Notice that the assembly program does not use a numerator variable. I got rid of it in the assembly program since, because of the way the loops are structured, the I counter will always have the same value as the numerator should have anyway, so we can save a few bytes by just using I instead of numerator. We will then begin the inner for loop, which we call loop 2 in the assembly program. In this loop, we first decrement all of our array index placeholders, then we compute what x should be according to the C++ program. This block of code performs that calculation by first computing 10 times the array element by repeated addition, then adding q times I also by repeated addition. Once the multiplications are done, we do the division step, handled by this block of code here. This was a bit tricky to figure out because of the complicated loop conditions needed to handle cases where negative signed numbers still need to behave like positive unsigned numbers. Honestly, writing and debugging this block of code is probably what took the longest in actually developing this program. It doesn't look pretty, and it might be possible to optimize this further, but it works, so I decided to leave it like this for now. Once the division is completed, we can set the array element equal to x with this block of code here. Finally, we decrement the denominator by 2 and decrement I by 1. If I has reached 0, then we are done and we can exit the inner loop. Otherwise, we perform an unconditional jump to continue the inner loop. Once the inner loop has ended, we can do the final division by first setting the first array element equal to q, setting q equal to 0, and then running our division loop. This loop's structure is vastly simpler than our first division loop. Again, none of the numbers here should ever become large enough for signed versus unsigned numbers to matter, so the loop's exit condition is therefore much simpler. After this final division loop finishes, we simply print q to the LCD by copying it to the LCD char address. Then we decrement j and end the outer loop if j has reached 0, otherwise we continue the loop. Once the outer loop ends, we simply halt the program by just repeatedly jumping back to the end of the loop, creating an infinite loop that just does nothing. The last section of our assembly code defines the memory layout of all of the variables and constants used by our program, as well as the array that we loop through. If we bring this program into the SUBLEQ assembler that I wrote and assemble it, we can see that it comes in just shy of the 256-byte limit allowed by our processor. When designing the processor, I also made a Logisim simulation of the processor to test the design before building it. If we copy the machine code generated by our assembler into the Logisim processor's RAM block and run the program, we should see that we do indeed get the first 3 digits of pi. Now the only thing left to do is to actually run this program on the real processor. But that turned out to be a much bigger challenge than I initially anticipated. Remember when I said that the hard part would be translating the C++ code into assembly code? Well, that was nothing compared to this. Programming this processor is extremely tedious. It doesn't have any kind of non-volatile storage, so the only way to run programs is to input the machine code directly into the RAM chip 1 byte at a time. I probably spent about 20 hours trying to do this over and over again, and over again it would refuse to work. I got close a couple of times, but it would always break or corrupt itself somehow. I suspect a lot of that has to do with human error. After all, even a single misplaced byte anywhere in the program can cause it to fail catastrophically. And every time that happens, you have to go through the whole program again, checking each byte to make sure it wasn't corrupted. I eventually just gave up and decided to take another crack at it in a week or two once my sanity had had time to return. Which is why this video is coming out 2 weeks after Pi Day and not on Pi Day itself like I had hoped. Anyway, after about 2 weeks, I decided to take another crack at it, and I managed to get a successful run. I was so excited to finally have this program working on real hardware for the first time, especially after all that time trying and failing to get it running. One weird thing that I noticed this time around was that the processor has trouble running the program at its highest clock speed. Given that the maximum clock speed is only about 1 kHz though, I have a feeling that this has more to do with the clock circuit I built rather than the actual processor circuitry. I think my clock circuit might just be a little bit too noisy for the processor to run reliably at this speed. However, slowing things down to around 130 Hz seemed to work wonders, and the program executed flawlessly, though much more slowly at this speed. One thing to note about this program is that it is not fully self-initializing. It relies heavily on the fact that all of the variables and constants were programmed with the right values at the start of the program. This means that if you reset the processor before the program finishes running, then those variables will get corrupted, and the program will not execute properly on the next run. However, I did manage to design the program in such a way that after it is finished running, it leaves all the variables in the right state to run the program again. So resetting the processor once the program is done should result in no problems. One more thing to note is that because of the way the characters are written to the LCD internally, we get this weird blocky character written before each of the actual digits. This is because we have to clear a memory address before copying to it, since SUBLEQ can only do subtraction. There are ways around this, but they require more complicated code for byte copies, and there simply wasn't enough room in the CPU's RAM in order to include that kind of functionality here. There also wasn't enough memory available to include a full LCD initialization routine here either. However, that really wasn't a big deal. Because the LCD is mapped directly to the CPU's memory, you can simply manually input the 4-byte LCD initialization sequence into the LCD's instruction register while you are programming the CPU. It's just one of those compromises I had to make in order to get this program to fit within the 256-byte limit of this machine's available RAM. This was such a challenging and rewarding project, and it's super satisfying to see all of that hard work finally pay off. If you want to see more content like this, consider subscribing to my channel so you don't miss out. I have a bigger and better processor that I'm planning on starting to build soon, and I'm also building a chess engine in C++ on this channel as well. If you have any other programs you would like to see this processor run, make sure to let me know down in the comments. I'll go ahead and leave this running so you can see it actually finish computing the first 3 digits of pi. Thank you for watching. Thanks to all of my subscribers, and I will see you next time.